None will stand in my way.
You should really leave this place. Battle 1. Fight.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at the 10 best fighting games to ever grace handheld consoles.
You win.
Before we begin, we publish new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Sonic Battle. With the only other Sonic fighting game being the often forgotten Sonic the Fighters, it was interesting to see how a Sonic fighting game would work on the GBA. Well, it truly is one of the coolest fighting games the GBA had ever seen. The controls were super responsive, and every character boasted enough depth between their normals and special abilities to make them feel distinct from one another. On the technical side, it was astonishing to see the GBA replicate 3D graphics for its arenas. Admittedly, the levels themselves weren't super interesting, but even so, there was quite a lot to love here between the combat, the technical prowess, and of course, the fights against friends. Soulcalibur Broken Destiny.
I will make you suffer.
I love these do-or-die situations.
Look, we can easily summarize this entry by saying, it's good old Soulcalibur squeezed onto the PSP, and just call it a day. Not only that, it's good old Soulcalibur with Kratos as the token guest fighter. But really, that's kind of all we needed. Even with the noticeable absence of a proper story mode, Broken Destiny was honestly a pretty good entry point for newer players, as much of the offline focus was on training and mastering the different playstyles. We'll admit that this entry could have given us a few more goodies, but overall, we were ready to throw down with our friends on smaller screens. Tekken Advance. On the surface, Tekken should not work on a limited console like the Game Boy Advance. This is a game built on 4 buttons assigned to each limb and requires complex inputs to execute devastating moves. However, Tekken Advance found a way to simplify the controls, yet still maintain a level of input required to pull off special moves. On top of that, the game still managed to include sidestepping, a key mechanic of the franchise, and it still ran and played as well as the home console in arcade games. Honestly, developer Aiding did a tremendous job with this micro-sized installment, so much that we hope to see it make its way to Switch Online's GBA catalog sometime in the future. Please, Nintendo?
You win.
Fight Night Round 3. Sports games never really had a presence in the handheld gaming market unless one was catering to the arcadey side of the market, or if Mario wedged his way into yet another sports title. But Fight Night Round 3 was the premier boxing game that every PSP owner wanted. While it didn't look as pretty as the 360 and PS3 versions, it still played well and even boasted a career mode that was more feature-rich, with customization options, Cutman contracts, and the like. You could even play historical boxing matches via rival challenges and really appreciate the athletes that made the sport so respectable. That said, in some ways, the PSP version might have been the best version out of them all. Just saying.
He showed great ring generalship and control over his punches. Well done.
Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors. Obviously, no Dragon Ball game is ever going to feel as fast and fluid on something like a Game Boy Advance compared to a PS2 or even a GameCube. Even so, Supersonic Warriors did manage to make do with the limitations and still match the look and feel of the anime in scope. The way the camera zoomed in and out and the parallax scrolling was programmed made it feel like the battlefield was way bigger than it actually was. On top of that, your fight still had awesome moments like kicking your opponent into a pillar of stone so hard that it causes the pillar to turn into rubble. Not bad for a pocket-sized brawler if you ask us. Dissidia Duodecim Final Fantasy.
Some things in life you just do.
Now, the original Dissidia Final Fantasy is still an amazing spin-off to go back and play. However, we're choosing Duodecim over its predecessor because of how it evolved the formula. For starters, you have more intricate mechanics to learn between the newly fleshed out assists and EX moves. But the biggest addition here was the new single-player mode that integrated elements of Final Fantasy's exploration with the more fighting game-focused combat. Build your dream party made of various Final Fantasy protagonists and set forth on a journey to kill chaos. But whether you were in this for the multiplayer or for the epic single-player, Dissidia Duodecim has long been known to be the best in this short-lived series. If only Square would port these games forward already, you know? But still stuck with Dissidia NT for some reason. Dual Blades.
First ball. Ready. Go ball.
If you've been watching our videos for a while, you might have noticed we've shilled for this game a number of times before. But for those who may not be in the know, Dual Blades was one of the 9 GBA games that ever got an M rating. And unlike the other 8 M-rated GBA games, this one was honestly excellent in just about every aspect. In addition to boasting a diverse roster of characters with varying playstyles, the controls and animations have made it to where the game hasn't aged a day. Sure, the viscera on display is far from what some would call graphic with its red Sharpie marker effects, but regardless, Dual Blades is the most impressive fighting game we had ever seen on GBA. And that's quite the accomplishment considering this game was made by a college student in Turkey at the time. Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. We are very well aware that Smash 4 has become the new Brawl in recent years, with the bizarre split in content and the whole fiasco with Bayonetta breaking the game at the very end. You get the idea. Despite all of that though, the 3DS version of Smash 4 is still a blast to go back and play every once in a while. It honestly doesn't feel much different to play than the home console versions, aside from being on a significantly smaller screen. But with modes like Smash Run and the way Classic Mode sported a build-your-own-path structure, there's quite a lot to love about this iteration more than some may let on. If only the 3DS didn't have such a fragile circle pad for some of us. Yeah, a lot of broken 3DSs back then.
3, 2, 1, time!
Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. The initial version of Tekken 5 was already remarkable with its detailed visuals and wealth of different game modes. So how is it that Dark Resurrection, the PSP iteration, turned out to be so much better? Well, by simply beefing up the size of the game. In addition to featuring a few more characters, Dark Resurrection allowed players to take on ghosts of other players to fight against, emulating online play while also allowing us to take on arcade players from other corners of the globe. Then there was the extra side games that Tekken 5 didn't receive initially. Oh, the hours we wasted on Command Attack and Tekken Bowling. Especially Tekken Bowling. The only reason we aren't considering it the best handheld fighting game ever is because of the PSP's D-pad not always being the most reliable when it comes to executing specific inputs. Needing a special attachment to play a game properly is just never fun. Dead or Alive Dimensions. Dead or Alive Dimensions is absolutely the best fighting game we have ever played on a handheld console. It was quite astonishing to see Koei Tecmo execute this game so flawlessly, while other notable fighting game franchises were floundering in getting just their ports to work on 3DS. As Street Fighter and Tekken struggled in performance, Dimensions ran at 60 frames per second on 3DS when 3D was turned off. When it was left on, Dimensions ran at a lower frame rate, but that frame rate was still consistent through and through. Even new players could get in on the action and learn the mechanics by executing moves just by tapping on what they wanted to use on the touchscreen. It was such a beautiful marriage between hardcore and casual fighting game players, and a huge celebration of the might and majesty of Dead or Alive. Tell us, what's the best fighting game you've played on a handheld? Did it make our list? I'm not kidding when I say Dead or Alive Dimensions is the best handheld fighting game I've ever played. But let us know what you think down in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great videos every day.